Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and joining us now, Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent, Double B, Bobby Blaze.
Hey, Professor, man, I'm stoked today. I'm coming to you from the back parking lot in a van in Evansville, Indiana, man.
Oh, God.
It's me, Double B. Look at me.
You know.
Oh, man. And I hope everyone's going to get that reference in just a few minutes.
I was going to say between the fabulous ones and, Bam Bam, wrestling vans kind of scare me these days, Bobby.
Yeah. If it's a rockin', don't come knocking.
That's it. Never touch Terry Gordy's van.
Don't touch Terry Gordy's van, that's true. And unless you're a female, you probably don't want to go around the Fabulous Ones van either, but we'll get into that a little bit later on.
I hear you come out changed.
Professor?
I am actually doing pretty darn good, Bobby. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing all right, man. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Had a pretty good week overall, man.
Yeah.
No internet all week, so I'm going to give a couple shout-outs here. I've had internet 20 minutes on Monday and about 20 minutes on Thursday, and I've been going to a certain location around town. But to record this week's podcast, I've got to come to the one of the Smedley homes here. My brother Jim has put me up and let me record from his front room, and I appreciate that very much, man.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to Maximus Smed over there on Twitter World.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. But please remember to be a professional.
Let's see. I got another couple shout outs. If you don't have anything right this second, do you?
Not this second.
Okay, I've got a shout out to Walk Smith at Cutthroat Walk from down in Victoria, Australia, man. Dude's a huge wrestling fan, and we've been corresponding a little bit and talking about this podcast and the Studcast being two of his favorite podcasts, man, and that's pretty cool. So I give him a little shout out there. And also, Professor, this Saturday, May 1st, the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, I think we get to have the Kentucky Derby again.
Oh.
After last year being a little bit delayed. But and I'll be watching that on the TV set, television. But also, if you're in the tri-state area, in the Ashland, Kentucky, Huntington, West Virginia, Ironton, Ohio area, dig this, man. Big Ron Simmons is coming to town.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, listen here. The Time Warp, now located at the Ashland Town Center Mall. They're having a grand reopening. And on Saturday, May the 1st, between 4 and 6, you can go down there and get a autograph or a picture or both with Ron Simmons, man. And shout out to Earl, the owner of the Time Warp, and also Casey King's down there helping put this thing together too. So shout out to those two guys, man. And I hope everyone around here that's a wrestling fan or a fan of Ron Simmons, I hope you get in there and pack the place out, man, and get you a picture and get you an autograph and have a good time. And also the Time Warp, man, they've just got, you would love it. It's for geeks, man. You collectors and geeks.
Right up my alley.
Yeah, oh, man, they've got everything down there. From comic books to arcade video games. I mean, got the whole thing, man. I can't do the commercial because I don't know everything about that world, but I've seen their shop. I was in it the other day for just a couple minutes, and it's coming together real nice. And at the original Time Warp, they actually had a Bobby Blaze T-shirt hanging up alongside many other professional wrestlers. And also, just so you know, if you're down at the Ashland Town Center this Saturday and you do get to meet Ron Simmons, that's great. But while you're there, guess what else you can do, Professor?
You could try to arm wrestle him?
Probably, but he'd say, damn,
yeah,
this is Bobby Blaze's hometown. And right over there on that counter, there's Bobby Blaze's books, and you can get them at the Time Warp too. So there you go.
Fantastic.
Plug there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have my books. They sell quite a few of them. So
no, that's great.
A consignment deal with them, and it works out real nice for both of us. So good deal. That's about the only news I had, other than if you want to talk a little bit about last week's program, just real briefly, because we do have a special guest, folks, and I'm going to announce them here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, let's go ahead, Bobby. Let's talk a little bit about last week.
Were you happy with it?
I am almost always happy with it. There's only a few times I've ever finished a show and thought, could we have done better?
Well, I thought that was a really good program last week. We've got some feedback on who could have been possible baby faces, and it was people we had on our list. But I think I was really, really pleased with the inaugural class we had on our Hall of Fame. And we've already got an idea for the next time we do it, revisit that another 3 to 6 months down the line. We've got us a heel and a wrestler, and we've already had some couple baby faces in mind that we spoke about before. So, I was really pleased with the show, man.
Oh, yeah. Obviously we're dealing with 116 years of pro wrestling history at this point. We could come up with a list of names for 8 hours straight and still not hit everybody.
Right.
Ricky Dozen is somebody we could have talked about, but yes, we are going to keep revisiting this. And I've been thinking I'm probably going to register us a new website here pretty soon. And I am probably going to make an arm just for our Hall of Fame section.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Just so we can keep track and go ahead and, put up little bios for everybody. But yeah, I was pretty happy with it. You know me, I like doing the historical stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you are the professor.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I read a good book this week. I think you did too. We're going to have a guest on our program in just a minute. Do you want to bring him on and I'll give him an introduction?
You know what? I am going to,
before you do it.
I am going to go ahead and send him the invite right now.
Okay, this is Bobby Blaze and a Bell to Bell podcast, and I've got with me, of course, as you've heard, we've got the Professor Jeremy Vilmur, of course, but we've got a guest this week. He's an author. He wrote Teeny, Professional Wrestling's Grand Dame. He is Brennon Martin. He's a graduate, born in Nashville, Tennessee, a graduate of Nashville Prep School, Montgomery Bell Academy, and also UNC down there in North Carolina. And Brennan, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Bobby, thanks very much. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And you are the grandson of Christina Teeny Jarrett, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Christine Jarrett. And she was known to her friends and family as Teeny.
Yes. I enjoyed the book, 5 Big Stars, man. Well done. Well written.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Glad to hear that.
I will leave you a review on Amazon, and I'll let you know via Messenger that when I do. And my ratings, when they come up, and I'll write you a nice review because it's deservingly well deserved. But it won't show Bobby Blaze; it'll show Mark. So figure it out.
Got it.
When you get a 5-star review from Mark, you'll know it's me.
Okay, outstanding.
I'll notify you when it's posted. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Well, welcome to the show, man. Now, we've talked, and I'd like to introduce you to Jeremy Vilmur. You two kind of got to talk here a little bit. So get to talking there, and we'll go from there. How's that? We've got a lot of things to talk about the book and have a good time. Use whatever kind of language you feel comfortable using. We're not, we're just having fun on here, man.
Got it. Good to know.
Even though I do fear your grandmother's grip if I do drop the F-bomb.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's a good. Fortunately, that doesn't. She's not able to transcend the spirit world and still do that because I would definitely. I got a bit of a potty mouth. She would not be happy with it.
That's one of her rules. We're going to go with those rules in a little bit.
Well, what was funny to me is reading that how much your stories about your grandmother reminded me of my grandmother and how much your great grandmother reminded me of my other side of the family's great grandmother. And that was a lot of fun. But, I've got a question for you right off the bat here because I did, when I was researching your books a little bit, I see you have 2 books.
Well,
but they look
yes
very
and
much
no.
alike.
Yeah. So I put the first book out, and they're the same book, to be clear. The only difference is is the title and the and you can actually only buy one of them. Mm-hmm. I pulled the other one off, but so I put the book out, and it was well received amongst wrestling fans who found it and read it. But my goal in writing this, and I'm trying to secure Teeny's legacy, in various wrestling circles and halls of fame and things like that. But I'd also like the world at large to know more about her. I think she's an impressive woman, and I feel like her story is one that would appeal to people who aren't wrestling fans. So I basically decided I was going to try to publish the book under a different title, different cover, and in the fiction section, even though it's based on a true story, just as a way to try to see if I could get more people interested in it. And it didn't work at all, and I only tried it for a few months, and then I took it off. So you can only get the original one now.
Yeah. So, you say you put it in there because I imagine you had to recreate certain scenes from just how do you get from A to B and make it a good story, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to write a biography because I don't read biographies. I wanted to write something that would interest me. And I think Teeny's story is interesting. And so, with the exception of the one chapter about the bear, everything in there is true to my knowledge and are, based on truth. But to create the scenes, I, made up dialogue and, I'd been told the stories by a whole bunch of different people, that I interviewed to get the research done for the book. And then I wove it into more of a narrative. So it reads like a novel as opposed to reading like a biography.
Sure.
Well, and I saw your acknowledgments there. You had a lot of people help you on this that I can hear when you're talking about, different people that's told you these stories through the years about your grandmother. And so it's just, if any fan grew up, watching wrestling on a Saturday morning, they should obviously buy this book and read it. It's a really good read. But also, the story of her success in her life, your grandmother's life, and having her children and raising the other's children, and then of course meeting Nick Gulas and just selling tickets out of the shoe store, and then ultimately getting major successful with the territory. It's a great read for someone that basically come from nothing and brought themselves up right through hard work and education and family, and just it's an impressive story. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to get this. The American success story, really, from rags to riches.
It really is, and it's also, just the fact that she had that success as a single mom. She started in the business in the 40s, but it was really in the 50s when she started to climb the ranks and have more responsibility. But to do that then and in that environment, while still maintaining a very high moral standard, she was a really strong woman. And I agree. I think her story is compelling, regardless of whether you like wrestling.
I absolutely agree.
I think if I did my timeline right, when I said rags to riches there, she would have been about 55, I guess, in 1977 when she became officially a millionaire, correct? Somewhere around mid-50s?
That sounds about right. Yeah, she was born in 1923, so. Okay.
I know you put it in there in 77. That's when she announced that she, was officially a millionaire. So I thought.
Yeah, and that, that's based on my memory, and it could be a year or two wrong in either direction, but that was about when it was.
Yeah, well, I started watching Memphis, my brother and I, around 1974, 75. But it really wasn't until around 1977, after that split, of course, that we really started getting into it. Because by that time, we were hitting our teenage years.
Right.
We went away from just a small handful of people in Kentucky at a grade school to now we're at a junior high, and we had a bigger amount of wrestling fans, And so we just grew to that TV every Saturday morning,
Well, everybody did.
Talk about on Monday, and that's what I grew up on, was the old Memphis tapes, as I call them, So
well, and it's just amazing that in Memphis at that time, that show was getting an 80% share.
Wow.
Now shows are happy with 7.
Yeah. Well, let's go with Miss Christine here. Let's go over her rules. Do I need to read them out? Do you know them by heart, Brennan?
Well, I know them by heart, and I got a cheat sheet here, too, with my book next to me.
Tell us about them, man.
Well, she wanted...
Good rules.
She wanted her towns to run a certain way, and she, had very strong opinions about the right way to do things. And one of those things that she insisted upon was being on time. Yep. And her rule was, you're in the building, in the locker room, or you're in the building an hour before the first bell. Doesn't matter when your match is. you're there an hour before the first bell. And she was strict about it. She'd hang out by the back door to check the boys in. And there, I got the chance to meet Brickhouse Brown about half a year or so before he passed. And he was telling me about her scolding him coming in late one night. He said, I was only about 10 minutes late. Said, she docked my pay. And and I said, well, was that the first time you were late? And he said, well, no. but he didn't. He was one of the. There were a few people out there who were not particularly fans of her because of her rules and how strict she was about them. But she also, the other thing was, she believed wrestling was a family affair, and that she felt that if the wrestlers were using foul language, that people wouldn't bring their kids; they'd leave the kids at home. Yeah. And of course, that turned out not to be true at all. But that's the way she felt about it, and so she insisted that that the boys not curse anywhere in the building. Like because she was afraid, if you're cussing backstage, then when you get on the mic, you might slip up and do so.
That makes sense, yeah.
And so I think she had a tough time enforcing that too much, but it didn't stop her from chastising and ultimately taking matters into her own hands. If she felt like somebody who had too much of a potty mouth, she would get him in that grip.
Rule number 3 here. The fabulous ones are turning the territory into a whorehouse.
Yeah.
Reference to my Evansville, Indiana, before we brought you on there, Brennan, just so you know, I'm recording from a van in a back parking lot in Evansville, Indiana.
Oh, outstanding. Well.
Tell us about this rule here.
Yeah, Teeny was not a fan of the arena rats. She didn't like those little girls who hung around the back door and tried to hook up with the wrestlers, before and after.
Anything about them?
I know. I mean, it was a unique situation at that time. It really doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. But she just, and her concern, was not so much about the morality of the situation, but just from a business perspective. She didn't want when she knew that these girls were not necessarily all 18 and she didn't want somebody's daddy coming for a shotgun wedding because a wrestler got her pregnant.
Right.
Gonna mess with the audience size.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what that was all about. But then her biggest rule, and this is one that the fact that she kept it as well as she did, and that is never break kayfabe. I mean, and that's true. She never did so at home. And she taught that to Jerry, my uncle, and he never did. And so, as a result, I didn't figure it out for a long time that things were not exactly as they seem. And I learned, my cousin Jeff was in the same boat. He figured it out a little bit before I did, but only because he moved in with Jerry out at his big place in Hendersonville.
Right.
And so yeah.
And then I guess he spent a summer riding with Teeny to and from the towns, right?
He did that as well. He'd already figured it out by that point.
Yeah.
Guys, let me interject real quick here, just to spell this out for anybody who may be missing out on something here. Brennan, Jerry Jarrett to you is
my uncle.
Okay, and his son would be Jeff Jarrett, and that'd be your cousin.
That's right.
Okay, I just wanted that in there just so we didn't dance around it or ignore it or forget it.
Yeah, sure.
And then I got a question for you. I'm assuming you haven't really listened to the show.
I have not had the opportunity to listen to the show.
Not a problem. So you don't know about our drinking game on the show?
No, I don't.
Okay, we have what we call the Fuller Welch drinking game here, which is anytime you mention a member of the Fuller Welch family in relationship to professional wrestling, you have to take a shot.
I see. Okay.
I got about halfway through your book before I got fucked up. So,
yeah, the Welches play prominently in Teeny's story.
Yeah, that's I kind of like almost clapped a little bit when I got to that section and realized who it was was that your second or third chapter, and the guys are gaslighting the guys at the bar.
Oh yeah.
I realize who it is, and I'm like, holy shit, here we go. Okay.
Yeah, and that, I needed a way to introduce those characters. I wanted Pat Malone in the story, and to have some backstory, because Teeny was he was such a dear friend to her, and so I also wanted Ginger the bear in the story.
Yeah.
I'd had the rough outline of sort of things that had the way that had happened at the time. Probably when I said it, I put it in the timeline probably a little bit later than what things were actually, when wrestling was actually happening in barns. I think that was actually earlier in the 1900s than what I said. But in any case, that was the funnest chapter to write, because I just got to make it, I thought I was funny, and I'm not sure if I was or not, but I was cracking myself up.
Well, I think anybody that has a sense of the history of wrestling, when that comes out, they'll be like, oh yeah. Anybody who doesn't know the names, it's going to blow right past them. That's my assumption.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because I always like to contextualize things. So Bobby kind of gave us your academic history. How much of a writer, is this your first book? Do you have other works you've done? Give us kind of a sense of that.
Definitely my first book. I've been published in like 2,000 word articles, a good bit, like maybe a dozen times, in the tech world. I used to write for this Puget Sound computer user, and there's a few other things out there. I've done a couple of academic papers and blog posts, but this is really I'd never taken on anything like this before.
Okay. And then
I'll say that, man, I really, really was.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I do enjoy writing quite a bit, and I'm still trying to figure out what else I can do with this story. I turned the book into a screenplay last summer, and that was fun to do. But I've learned that if it's going to be a movie, somebody else is, they don't want a screenplay. They just want to buy the rights to the story.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to figure out how to maybe I can get published in a magazine to get some attention or something like that.
Yeah, or you could always start looking at doing an independent film version of it as a short film and trying to sell that and have somebody adapt it out too.
Yeah, that's true. That's a long way from anything I know anything about.
That's like everything is foreign to you till the first time you do it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah. I did have a question for you, and then Bobby, I'll back off and let you kind of come back to yours. Is the story of your grandmother grabbing Jack Pfeffer by the head true?
Some aspect of it is true.
Okay.
Because what I don't know is whether she really stuck her finger through his cheek. My Uncle Jerry swears it happened. Mm-hmm. But there's no witnesses still alive.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I should ask, is it factual rather than true? Because the truth of things is different than the fact of things.
Yeah, you're right. Well, and so what I have been able to confirm is that she did definitely threaten to kill him, because he put that in a letter that is available. His archives are at Notre Dame, and I was able to get in touch with them, and they've got me a copy of the letter. And see, I forget exactly what it says, but basically refers to Teeny Jarrett threatening to kill me. So something happened. Yeah. I don't know if it was exactly the way it's in the book. Well, he did. He certainly left Gulas Welch alone.
Yeah. Speaking of this name here, I'll come back to the daddy in just a minute. Daddy said sell. Daddy said sell. Dude, the George. We'll come back to Nick in just a minute.
Oh my gosh.
What funny to me is the George Gulas, because I've always heard these different stories. Some from like Bobby Eaton, and he's one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet. But
yeah, well, he partnered up with Bobby for
exactly. That's what's going to say. He knew him a little bit about we're going to have a picnic. They stopped at a but him and his match with Harley Race, and then Harley's in there trying to carry him for an hour, and the story about Daddy said sell. That cracked me up, and then also sadly. I just want to clarify this too on George. I've watched a lot of SEC basketball. I just can't imagine a grown man sitting on another grown man's lap in Ashland, Tennessee, watching the game. But I'll go with it. But let me ask you this: the same day, twice in a prostitution sting ring. Now we don't talk trash on people, okay? Especially those that can't defend themselves on here. I'm just asking: was that in the same day you actually saw that on the news, though?
I personally saw that on the news because not only did he get caught twice, but he agreed to an interview about getting caught twice.
Okay, that just cracked me up.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce us to who we're talking? The gentleman's dad we're talking about, Nick Gulas, who is a very dear friend of Teeny, and actually gave her that first break of selling the tickets and go from there. And I just want to kind of shoot some humor into the program there with that, because that just cracked me up, especially with the daddy said sell, because I'd heard that, and also they stopped at a gas station and we're having a picnic. You know, I just heard those through the years, and it just cracks me up every time. So that's well written. I appreciate you putting that in there.
Well, thanks. Yeah, Daddy Said Sell is a story that certainly made the rounds on a lot of places, but it was too good not to include. Yeah, George Gulas, Nick's son, he was an interesting character, and I gave him a pretty hard time in the book. But he's still he's doing well. He's not involved in wrestling anymore, but I think he shows up at a reunion every once in a while. But yeah, Nick Gulas, is just a famous character in wrestling, and he's known for being a spendthrift and an asshole and a cheat and everything else. And he was all those things, but not to my family. Right. He and Teeny were best of friends, like brother sister, and Teeny controlled Nick and his cursing just like she tried to control the wrestlers and theirs, and she was the only one that could do it. But they stayed friends. They stayed friends long after the split. And he was nothing. He was never anything but kind to me. He kept my dad out of Vietnam with a well-placed case of Jack Daniels that landed him in the National Guard instead of going overseas. So, Nick was a saint to us, but man, he was tough to just about everybody else. Yeah.
Good deal, man. Well, where can people get this book? Tell them, because Jeremy and myself, we've downloaded it. Do you sell autographed copies, or is it anywhere out there beside Amazon? Just kind of let us know where our wrestling fans, because we've got a pretty solid base of old school wrestling fans. Obviously, the way this podcast is laid out, so let them know, man, where they can get your book at.
Well, Amazon is the only place to get it, unless you can catch me at a show somewhere. And I'm not sure when those are going to start up again, but I'm supposed to be in Iowa for the Hall of Fame this year, and also in Vegas for the Cauliflower Alley Club. So awesome. I'll be selling autographed copies at those places. But other than that, you can get a paperback or a Kindle version off of Amazon. And you can also get an audio book either directly through Audible or on Amazon. And I think you can also get it through iTunes, if I remember correctly.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Jeremy, you have anything else you want to finish up with?
Yeah, I do, actually. So as you were researching this book, was there anything you were shocked to learn about your grandmother's story?
Anything I was shocked to learn? That's a really good question.
Why, thank you.
I don't think anybody's ever asked me that one.
Well, I don't.
Nothing's quite coming to mind. What's your answer, Bobby? What shocked you?
That she's a smoker, because you said you knock on the door and it'd take like 5 minutes, and you didn't figure it out 2 years later.
Well, yeah, that was. That was both shocking and not shocking to confirm after she died. But I never forget opening that top drawer on the dresser and pulling out half a case of cigarettes and about 3 lighters in there.
Yeah.
But
it's going to make you look bad for smoking. I'm just saying that was one thing that shocked me when I was reading. I was like, I would have never thought that, Because my dear grandmother's around too. At some point, they sadly passed away, but it took a long time for me to figure it out as a young boy too. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's always
Yeah.
shocking. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what surprised me the most was yes, not everybody was her fan. There's like probably 2 or 3 people I talked to that were not her greatest fan,
Sure.
but everybody else was, and just the consistency of what people said about her, which was that she was just one of the most generous, kind people they'd ever known, but she was serious about business. And as long as you understood that when you were in her town, you were working for her, then it all went, everything went just fine, and people loved her. But it was, again, there were a few folks that didn't feel that way. I was at a show in Jackson, Tennessee, at the arena there, Oman Arena, and hanging out beforehand before they opened the doors with Jim Cornette and Rock and Roll Express, and a couple other folks were hanging around and looking through old pictures that I take to those events that people like to see. And so I turned to Ricky and Bobby, and I said, "Boys," did Teeny ever put either one of you in the grip? And Ricky looked up and he said, "Absolutely not." He said, "We knew better than to break Teeny's rules." Yeah, so that's, people just, for the most part, she was loved.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. Guys, I'm going to interject with one thing here. One of my favorite parts of the book, if I may share this, was your grandmother was getting ready to take your mom to meet Gorgeous George. And your great grandmother hands your mom off and says, if when you see him, you kick that son of a bitch in the shins. So my great grandmother over here in California, back in the day, she was this little half Indian woman that sat in this tin shed, was the only time I knew her, and had this little black and white 13-inch TV. And on Friday nights, she would sit in front of this TV in her wheelchair and whack the shit out of her TV with a cane. And you peck that son of a bitch on the head, you get him. And she would beat the shit out of her TV. And as soon as I read that about your grandma Bertie, I was like, that's Mama Judy right there. Right there. That is that lady right there.
Yeah, I mean, my great grandmother Bertie had, Mama Wright, as we called her. She lived such a hard life.
Yeah.
She raised 2 generations of kids in a really trying circumstances. And so when wrestling came along, it was like this escape for her. She would just lose herself in it, and unexpectedly loved it once Teeny got in the business. So it was. The stories that I've heard from my mother about Mama Wright at the matches are really funny. She was definitely that old lady standing up screaming.
Yeah, that's a great story.
We all had one of those on our TV or in our family or in our wrestling town.
Every show's got one. Every town's got one.
The way you told that story, it was spot on, man. It really was. It made me think of a lady at the Baltimore Civic Center when I was younger, and also a lady at the Knoxville Civic Center as I was wrestling. We had a lady every show there. Right up there in the front row, man. That was her. And it's like you told it really well.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, good deal. All right, man. We better start to wrap things up here. Jeremy, Brennan, anything else before we wind down here?
No, I just really appreciate you having me on. And I'm sorry it took me so long to notice the tweet. I have been really bad about hanging out on social media lately.
What's 18 months between friends, Brennan?
Was it really that? It wasn't. Couldn't have been that long.
I know. Okay,
it's probably 8.
I have to say it was at least 7 because we actually stopped the show for 6 months after I had sent you the invite. We had stopped doing the show for like half a year. But the pandemics do weird things to people, so we started it back up. So you came along at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it worked out. I've enjoyed talking to you about it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you on a show sometime down the line, selling some books and hanging out or what have you once this world gets back to like it is. Jeremy and I keep saying we're going to get out to Cauliflower Alley, so maybe we'll meet you out there sometime or something,
Well, that's a great event. And, the Hall of Fame, National Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa, that's usually in July. I don't know what it is this year. That's a fantastic event that you should think about trying to get to.
Right now I'm just trying to think how I get to how Miss Van in Evansville, Indiana. At least the radio works.
All it plays is Skinnerd, but it works.
That's it, man. All right, man. Well, thanks very much for being on the podcast. We appreciate it. You're only our third guest, man. We started changing it, and we've had Ron Welch on here, Ron Fuller, of course, and we've had a friend of ours, William Harding, who told a story about getting out of the sugar hold back in the old ICW days. So we were starting to interject with some authors and some. We got a couple other podcast people lined up as well. But just want to let you know, man, you're like only our third guest, and it was a pleasure having you on the program, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Get out there and get that book, folks. It's Teeny, Professional Wrestling's Grand Dame, and you just heard Brennon Martin, her grandson, talk a little bit about that book. So get on over to Amazon and buy one. Help a brother out. You got any social media? You said you've been laying low off of there.
Well, yeah, there's so on Twitter, there's a bunch of photos that I have posted there over maybe a 2-year or more period at Teeny Jarrett is my handle there, or you can also find those same photos, usually with a little bit more of a caption on Facebook, and it's under the name of the book, Teeny, Professional Wrestling's Grand Dame.
There you go. Look them up, folks. You'll enjoy it. You put a couple pictures in the back of the book that I enjoyed seeing also. So, good deal, man. You can follow the professor at the Geekish Cast on Twitter. You can find me at Bobby Blaze 744 on Twitter, or our joint account, Bell to Bell Blaze on Twitter, and there's also a Facebook group under at Bell to Bell Blaze. Go check out Brennon Martin on there. Once again, thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing the story of your awesome grandmother.
All right. Thanks, Bobby.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That was Brennon Martin, author of Teeny, the book about Christine Jarrett. I have to say it was a fun read. Now, I did a marathon read on it. I read it in basically 2 nights. I'd started it, but this weekend just kind of got out of control because my plan was to read it all Friday. But I enjoyed it. You do lose at the Fuller Welch drinking game if you play it, however.
Well, I read the first 3 chapters the first day I got it, and then I spent Tuesday, and I read it at 3 different times on Tuesday and finished it. I really, really enjoyed it. I did it like 2-hour increments because, on your Kindle, it does give you like kind of a lapse time deal or what have you. But I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give them 5 stars, man. Well-deserved 5 stars. Like I said, when it comes to books and stuff, especially where I do a lot of authors and stuff on my Twitter handle, if I'm reviewing books and stuff, the only thing I do is I go under the name Mark. As I said, that's just if I give you a review, it's going to be fair and honest, like I asked for on my books, of which I have 2, and I'm going to tell you about them right now, Professor. The professor has set up a little tiny URL links to this, and that Bobby Blaze's book can be found anywhere on Amazon under ebooks and print editions. The main 2 are Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boost Will Travel. You can get that at tinyurl.com/blazebook1. My other book is called I Kicked Out on 2, The Educational Wrestler. You can get that at tinyurl.com/blazebook2. I'd be honored if you take the time to not only purchase one of my books, but also leave a fair and honest review on that, as well as on our program, Professor, right?
Yes, absolutely. Please, anywhere you listen to our show, yes, leave a rate, a review, a comment, whatever the format allows. Please let us know you're listening, what you think of the show. We do appreciate it. Do reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere else. We do like to interact with the listeners. Bobby, I gotta tell you. So yesterday, you and I had a phone call while I was waiting for my mom to get her second vaccination for COVID, and she came out to the car. You guys said hi to each other through me. When I got off the phone with you, I showed her the video of you stuffing that elbow on that guy. I can't think of his name. And she looked at that and she was horrified. She's like, oh my God, how hard did he hit him? I said, I think he just rung his bell a little bit. I said, but Mom, I hear the guy was a bit of an ass, so it's okay.
Well, I'm telling you, man, someone sent me that gift, and man, I tell you what, I popped. And I'm one of my own worst critics, you know.
Oh, absolutely, you
and
are.
I've sent it to several people. If you're not familiar with it, I'm in a match in WCW. I need to give them a shout out next week, whoever sent that to me. There was 2 people sent it to me, wrestling-related, either podcast or I know Twitter accounts that are, you know, they sent it to me. But that took place in Orlando, Florida at the Universal Studios there on a worldwide taping. And, you know, just I didn't hurt the guy per se. I'm just saying, you know, I just took care of some business. But I was told by the office, you know, hey, you know, you're going over and, you know, take most of the match. And so, you know, it's kind of like we was talking about Kurt Hennig having to make someone else look good, you know, and put them in their place and be in the right place and things. I got that spot. That was an old Manny Fernandez spot. I was talking to my brother about it. Usually I do 2 drop downs, and that kind of blows them up because they're running the ropes, and then catch them right as they come off the ropes. And Todd, man, he just, I happened to catch him right at the right time after that drop down. So I'll try to repost that again on my Twitter for you listeners out there. And if you see it, man, please share it. It's a good little gift, man. And I've actually, someone sent me the full video on, what is that, Daily Motion is where you can find it at. I'll try to post that to my Twitter account as well. But I'm glad you enjoyed that, man. My brother got a big pop out of it, and he's got a picture of him and Manny Fernandez and a couple other people. Frank Murdoch, who's Dick Murdoch's nephew, was on the show, and Sweet Scotty Ace was managing. It was a pretty good deal. But Manny said, "Bobby, here's a way to blow someone up right off the bat. Take advantage and put you in a dominant position." And so I never had forgotten that. But
hey, I gotta ask Bobby. So when would that come up? When would you be like, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna just floor this guy's lungs? When would you do that?
Oh, just if they're not paying attention, you know, if they're kind of, you can tell they're, you know, not trying their hardest when they need to get their ass up and move for you. If you've been doing something for them and they're wanting to be a little bit lazy. And also if you just put them at a disadvantage. You know, if the office says, you know, you're going over, take most of the match, he's a green guy, the less you give him, the better you'll look, you know. And the experience factor showed. And again, this is not a dig towards the gentleman I was in the ring with, but as you saw how he ran them ring ropes, he was already baffled and raffled. And
oh, yeah. He ran all duck-footed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is there's times you can get in the ring, and, you know, we can fight, we can fuck, or we can run a foot race, you know, whatever it is. Hopefully you're there to work, you know. So you got to grab a guy, get him in a rear chin lock and say, look, man, you're blowing yourself up, calm down. You know, they're breathing all heavy. But that guy particularly, there was a couple of them there that were power plant guys, and they were there for Universal tapings, and they really thought, you know, they had the best gimmick in wrestling. They'd say, it's my hair. I'm going to get over because I've got this great hair, this fantastic hair, this Fabio hair. And you're like, I know several veterans beside myself that have heard that comment from a couple of these guys. And put it this way, what you saw me hitting him with was easy compared to what a Fit Finley gave him when they got in the ring. I'll say that.
God,
because he wrestled both these guys as well. And, you know, you just don't do that around Fit Finley. You know, talking about, and again, this is back in the day, but, you know, just talking about how good their body was, and that would get them over. They didn't have to learn to work because, you know, their hair is going to get them over, whatever. But that just pissed some people off, you know, when everyone's there busting their ass. Some of us for our last paychecks, you know, hanging on to it. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it came from. I don't know if I said, you know, butthole, but I'm just saying he was kind of cocky and arrogant in a sense that and here it is 20 years after anyway. So, you know, I hope the gentleman's doing really well, and hope he found his teeth. So.
That was a chiclet spitter, I got to say. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoy getting that gift sent to me.
Yeah.
And I almost got over last night on UFC. What's the guy's name? Jim Weldman?
I think that was it. I'd have to go back and double check, but I think that was it.
They played I Won't Back Down, and I guess people were looking to the back hoping Bobby Blaze would come out. But I'll tell you right now before I get off the air, if I ever come out of the back of a UFC event, if I ever do, it's hopefully because I got a pass to get in the back and actually walk out to the ring with one of the fighters, because you won't see me in any UFC matches, MMA matches, or anything like that at my advanced age and the way my body is. It's all I can do right now to get up and walk and try to exist on the planet and share my wealth of knowledge about wrestling and wrestling podcast and wrestling books and life in general, man. Just happy to be alive still, and happy that someone's not going to try to shoot me in and give me a back elbow, because I'm not in the mood for it.
Oh, God,
I'm
yeah.
too old for that stuff anymore. I'll help anyone I can out there, and I have been, and I try to. And I just want to say the best thing you can give people out there before I get off here is give them some love and share your time with them, because time is a good commodity to share with other people. And especially if you're like the professor or myself, that you like to, that we do these podcasts for you, for the people, so they have some entertainment at least once a week, because I listen to several podcasts that just uplift me, make me feel better, have a laugh. And we hope that we've done the same thing for you, is give you some entertainment. Ha! Tooey, spit that word out of my mouth, but I know you enjoy it. And with that said, Professor, I'm going to take myself off the mic. I'll let you close us out, man. But again, thanks to Brennon Martin for being on this podcast. Thank you, Professor, for editing and producing and being a producer of the podcast. And until later on, man, thank you so much, everyone out there. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Yeah, me too. I'm hoping this turns out okay. We are using a new method of recording. So we'll see how the levels and everything turn out. I'll do my best, but we'll see. Everybody, thank you for listening. If you have not done so, please get out there, buy a copy of Bobby's books, buy a copy of Brennon's book, Teeny. It's a hell of a story. It really is. About a woman who pulls herself out of the post-depression era, dirt poor, and goes on and really creates a wrestling dynasty, the Jarrett family. It's a hell of a story. It's a good read. Brennon is a good writer. I enjoyed this a lot. I think you will too. But in the meantime, for the late Tex Johnson, myself, Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and Double B, Bobby Blaze. Would that make you the reinforcer, Bye-bye? Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.